Good evening, all you gremlins and gizmos, and welcome to another episode of I'd Rather Be Motivated. With David Fleming and myself, Scott O Green. We are the duders that bring you I'd Rather Be Drawing.com. So, the theme for this show, David, tell me about that real quick. What's going to be the topic for today once we get into that?
Hold on one second. I just hit a bunch of buttons. I did not mean to. There we go. I'm back. Am I back? There it goes. We last week when we met, we talked about sort of our year plan, 5-year plan of like what we do here with IRBD Drawing and ourselves as artists and in the comic. And then as I was working this week to finish the goals for what we said we would get done, I kind of realized like we talked very sort of like, this would be great if this happened. This would be great if that happened. And as a realistic person I am for getting projects done, I kind of sat back and said, what would be one way to actually make a step to get one of those things done for real and make sure that like I would at least hit one of those goals of my 5-year plan. Like I'm taking steps or actions to actually make that thing happen and not just waiting around for a thing to happen kind of thing. So I thought that would be a nice way to kick off the next segment. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for it because, like you said, making a 5-year plan, that's a big deal, and you got to form a game plan. And after we talked last week, like I told you, it was a bit of a scramble to kind of get done the art I did. So for me tonight, that'll kind of be I'm doing the homework as we're talking about it, kind of figuring out, okay, what's my next real step towards really accomplishing this. So I'm excited for that. But first, we will do the art check portion of our show. And first, even before that, we're going to actually introduce ourselves and kind of where you can find us when we're not here at I'd Rather Be Drawing's YouTube channel. So, Mr. Fleming, where can we find you and your comic analog missions?
Well, just as always, check the show notes because we do try to update those and put the most relevant links for what we talk about every night. Find me if you go to my Instagram at Art of Mr. Fleming, then you will find a link tree which will send you everywhere. If you don't want to do that, you want to skip right to it, go to Store Envy and look up Mr. David Fleming. You'll find my shop. You'll be able to check that out. If you go to our website, it is newly updated. I think I might have touched on this a little bit last week, but I kind of went back in and I did even more to it. But the website on the main page has a little slot for you to check it out. Read the first chapter for free. Links to go buy all that good stuff. Check out Analog Missions because that's the cool stuff coming down the pipeline. That's what I have to talk about and share tonight too for my plan and all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, if you haven't read it yet, there's even a digital flipbook version. It's only $5. And it's a pretty cool little variation from getting just a PDF. It looks like an actual book as you flip through it online. It's pretty cool. So that's me. How about you?
Well, for me, I am Scott O Green. Like I said, where to find me when I'm not here every week on our art check is on Instagram. Once again, I have a link tree there as well. But Mr. Green Draws, mr.greendraws. That's where you'll find me. There's links to all sorts of stuff. Also to 100daysofmakingcomics.com, where you can learn about a whole bunch of different indie creators that I had a privilege of making, being a part of an anthology comic that will be released soon. And the Kickstarter is over, but if you go to 100daysofmakingcomics.com, any of those artists on there that you see will soon have their own personal stack of books to sell. So it's not too late. But that's where you'll find me. And that leads us into the art check portion of the show, which is a weekly check-in portion. We kind of steal that term art check from Joshua Kemble and Corey Kerr. They do a 48-hour art check. I highly recommend it. It helped me this week push to get stuff done. And it's just an accountability thing. Online and Instagram, those things are great for social media and gaining fan base, but a lot of times we need to use those things for accountability. But even more than that is getting hold of another artist, and whether you're in person and can meet up every week or get online like this and share it with the world, or at least just with each other. It's just good to kind of stay accountable and have another person to hold you to it. So that's where we go through progress, problems, and plans. What's been your progress since last week, Mr. Fleming?
Well, we started this, which is hilarious that we just finally got this started, but we actually wrote down what we said our plans would be. And
what I had for you was character timelines and cover finish.
Yes. So I was working on like a character sheet, more or less, for lack of a better term, of them in the different times. So the book tells itself the story of the world kind of from the perspective of a few different timelines. And because there's sort of a big event that changed the world, and then there's sort of like the event that starts the book, and then everything in between. And so as a device for telling the times, instead of having to literally constantly put up like 8 years later and all that kind of stuff, which I will use when I need to, but then after like I've established like a time period, the look of the character will actually tell you what time period we're telling a story from. So whether or not it's like between this age gap or that age gap, they will have a different sort of outfit or look or a thing to kind of establish that. I finished that for the 2 characters I wanted to finish it for, started it on the 3rd character, and what was not a part of my plan, but kind of became a part of my plan, was I actually did establish a timeline. So like, this is kind of fun. It's just, this was like, I just really quickly on a piece of paper, just as like a quick of notes, and then wrote it down other places. But like, this is like a literal timeline of like the events and the times and the time frame of where I need to tell the story of. And that was like a really good thing, because after I wrote all that stuff down, it kind of sparked a little bit more kind of in my brain, which was cool, and which was actually what led me to the topic for the night. Because last night I had this like, this is like, I'm sure you've had this experience. I have it all the time. It's kind of how I make the things I make. But I couldn't sleep last night because I threw my back out last week.
Ooh.
And was just already kind of not in a good place because I was just in pain. But then it like made me think, and then I thought, and then I like literally planned out the next 5 books in the series of what I want to write.
Very cool, man.
In my head. And then when I woke up this morning, thought about it and was like, was it just like I was thinking of the night and it's all a bunch of rubbish, or is this worth writing down? And I wrote it all down, and then I'll have to flash this one really quickly in front of the screen, right? Because it's like, not that you can read my handwriting because it's the worst, but this is my quick notes of the next 5 books. So what I realized is the way I'm writing books, or the way I'm kind of creating this series, and I did this more as like a manageable thing, like this is how I know I can manage it. Oh man, I don't have a book next to my desk. I always have a book next to my desk. But the books end up being about 50 pages. And what I realized is that I'm doing this first set of books in 3, and then there'll be a great, they'll be able to collect it. It'll be 150, and that's like a great like graphic novel size. And so then the next sort of series of things will happen in another set of 3 books, 50 pages a piece as well, so that like I can just keep this format. And then that'll be another collection, because I always originally thought of this series being collected as 3 sections. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So then it'll be 3 books of 150, but they're going to release serial in my own method, which is the 50 pages a piece in a softcover, 9 books altogether. And I wrote out the big bullet points for the first 6 books.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. So yeah, so essentially there will eventually be, eventually, 3 books of 3.
Yeah, 3 large collected, hopefully. But if not, that's why it's cool, because even if I don't end up collecting these, then it'll be a series of 9 books, all in 3 arcs, basically.
That's super cool. It sounds like you're working on your Akira opus.
Yeah, and it didn't mean to be, but the more I develop this thing that I'm developing, the more it's becoming something that I can see myself working on this in the background of all the other stuff that I do for the next few years, and then some, like a book a year, and maybe even better. Because I mean, like last year I didn't start actual production until October. And then I really didn't, like I made pages, and then like for that next month I didn't do much, and I didn't really start back up again until January of the next year, really producing again. So if I like started now and actually produced, and because it's kind of how I create, it's kind of like that thing we talk about with like trying not to burn myself out on my projects. Mm-hmm. I know that if I try hard for a month, the next month will never be as productive. And so,
wait, say that one more time.
If I try as hard as I can in a month, I know that my productivity the next month suffers because I burn myself out by pushing so hard.
Gotcha.
What I've learned is that I need to save certain kinds of jobs. So like what I need to do is spend this month drawing actual pages now, then I kind of like laid this out, take those next month and actually start doing the finishing touches on them because that stuff doesn't take as much of my mental power and start actually like formatting them and getting them into the book and like digitally and scanning it, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that the next month after, I'll be back in the zone again to just push hard doing the physicals of actual pages of it again. And if I can do, because that's basically what I did, I mean, every chapter in the book is from 10 to 15 pages long. And then with all the extras and everything like that, that's how it adds up to about, it's like 46 pages of actual like comic with everything in between kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
So then if I can do that one a month, every other month, I could actually release this one like at the beginning of next year. I could release it already instead of waiting until March. So it'll be like one book a year, but each one actually only taking, 9 months to make. So eventually they'll catch up and I'll be able to do something a little bit more with the rest of a good year or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That makes good sense. Sounds like kind of going with your strengths and seeing where you've seen burnouts in the past and kind of trying to adjust for that by batching the artwork, it sounds like. So it's not just so grueling and I do this, then I do that, I do this, then I do that, but really kind of like get the pencils all done and then like the next month beyond to kind of the next sort of phase, so to speak. Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
Yeah, well, and it's like not even. It's like before, because it's the way I work. It was like, all right, I'm gonna do all of the pencils, then I'm gonna do all of the inks, then I'm gonna do all of the formatting, and I'll do all of the lettering. But then I realized that's what burns me out is that I'm like constantly pushing myself in one way.
Oh, I gotcha.
And so what I need to do is kind of like, I'm going to do all of penciling and then I'm going to ink them and then I'll have a chapter and then I can scan a few in and I can actually letter like the first few pages. And then when I'm sick of that, I can go back to penciling and inking. I don't have to
okay,
like
so kind of batch it, but sort of by chapter at a time, not the whole book at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't have to feel
like
I'm literally trying to push myself to do this, like you said, magnum opus thing. Like it's just like my flow will be like working, 10, 15 pages in a month. Just enough to be scanned in, and then like the next month I can play with like formatting and finalizing and feeling good about them, and then the next month I can have that feeling of going back and forth and not feel like, and I'm not allowed to do anything until I have 44 pages of inked comic. Like I can't letter this or touch or do that, that kind of thing.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Well, you jumped from progress right into plans.
Yeah, I know.
Into like topic for the night.
That was just like this. I mean, this is why I chose it, right? This is what
You're
happened.
pumped, right? I hear you.
Yeah,
it's fresh on the brain. No, that makes sense, man.
It is.
So, and
like,
so you got the character timelines all done. Did you talk about your cover finish? Because I believe I saw that posted.
Yes, that was my post for today, was the finished cover. So I finished the cover for book 2, and I've already, because then I wrote out the events of the next book, I already kind of have some cool ideas for what the cover of book 3 will look like. And I might even just play with that a little bit next month and just do maybe like a mock cover just so I can, as like a cool promotional, like here comes number 2 and guess what, number 3. It's like I just realized, like I was thinking about my plan and I was like, okay, what do I want to do? What would be cool to do, and what do I actually already do that I love and that I enjoy and that is already pulling in a fan base and already has people into it. And I realized, like, if none of the other things I want to happen, if this is all that our YouTube channel ever is, which is like super cool with me, honestly, checking in with you every week is a blast. Mm-hmm. And it keeps us going. Okay, well, the other thing I wanted to do, like in the 5-year plan, like, well, okay, I want to make comics. So, and because even like this year, I told you, because I had a kid, I'm doing less shows. And one of my things is I want to do more shows, the comic convention thing. So even if I never did a show ever again, did nothing more with the YouTube channel, what would it be that I'd want to hone in on? And it was like, I want to make sure I'm spending my time drawing my comics.
Yeah.
And so then I realized that I needed to make a plan to make myself attract to that and let everything else happen around that. Like make that the pillar that keeps me in the zone I need to be in. And then knowing that after I've made the comic, I sell it the best by doing conventions, and then I make the connections the best by inviting people to watch our show and stick with it and watch my progress and all that kind of stuff. But it all revolves around making sure I'm actually making progress on the comics in the first place.
That's hilarious. That's basically like in the little amount of time before you told me earlier today what you thought the topic would be. And at first, me going, oh gosh, I got to sit down and make a whole bunch of bullet points and make a plan, was like, well, I'll transition, do that. Like, that's my homework for like the show tonight. The one thing that I thought of was just that, what you just said right there, that a lot of what it all centers around with the knowns and unknowns is keep making the comics. You know, whether you work on illustration or this or that, or needing to learn window painting or this or that, it all centers around keep making those comics. Even if that isn't like the essential moneymaker, like you said, you make those comics in your convention, your credibility goes up, and you sell your wares and you meet people and get other deals, and your path might change. But no, that makes good sense, man. We're jumping straight into it. Makes sense.
Yeah, so you're in the mind of me tonight. This is how I am with my things that I get overly overtly passionate about, is that like I go 100 miles an hour in my brain and I can't stop.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's the zone I'm in. And then like to top it off, so like that was last night that I couldn't sleep, right? And I already knew I had some stuff I had to get done today. Like I'd already gotten the character sheet done early and already gotten the cover done. So I was like, cool, like I've already basically hit my goals for the week, and today's the day to check in. Last night was the day I couldn't sleep, and then it was like my son, who never naps for longer than like an hour, napped for almost 3 hours. And so I was literally just like, Patty fell asleep, like Ellie was still asleep, like my whole house was asleep, and I was just like sitting at my kitchen table just like churning these ideas out, and it was like, man, I cannot wait to get on and talk about all this. Like I'm in the zone. Let's talk about art. As I was just being a loner at my kitchen table, hoping no one else would wake up and give me more time to finish all the stuff I was doing. So yeah, how was your week?
Pretty good, man. Busy as usual, you know. A little bit different this last week because my wife had surgery. She had, it was planned and everything and outpatient, but it was having a hole in her eardrum patched up. So they had to take a piece of skin from your ear here and then went inside her ear and had to deal with stuff and patch it over. So a bit of taking care of that and her this week, which has been nice to spend the time and everything. A bummer when, you know, someone you love is in pain or dealing with that sort of particular torture of now she's got, you know, dealing with drops in the ear and there's like bandage stuff basically down in there that she gets removed in a couple days. So it's a trying thing for anybody. So that's just between that and work. I knew last week when I made my goals that it might be a little bit hard pressed for them, but I was kind of feeling the momentum of creativity and feeling a good flow with that again in our cycle. So I kind of just set it for a little bit further. I didn't quite get all of it done, but I don't feel too defeated about it. I wish I would have gotten further, but once again, this show helps because it's like, you know, I've gotten this done, but I want to get even further because I'm going to talk with David tonight, and I want to see how far I can do that. So once again, a good reason to do an art check. For what I actually did last week, I said that I wanted to get 2 commissions fully penciled or 1 completely done. I said I wanted to get 1 video, my first video for Read More Comics, ready to go up by this Wednesday. And I said I wanted to script an ending. I've been working on my script, but I really kind of set a goal of wanting to kind of script the ending because I have it to a certain point and then the finisher kind of up in the air. So the 2 commissions, I didn't get one fully inked. I'm working on this one right now. I don't know if you can see it. It's a Miles Morales Spider-Man. These were for the Kickstarter for Werewolves and Unicorns and Other Mythical Creatures. At work, I put out some flyers, and I said to anybody at my job who contributes and buys a physical book, I'll do a commission for you. And I got a few takers, and some of them had some fun ones. So the Miles Morales, he wanted, this one's a Mad Hatter for a kid. So it kind of let me do my own thing and practicing commission work, you know, but wanted to put a little bit extra into it. So I have 2 fully penciled, kind of know what I'm going to do in the backgrounds to kind of finish them off and everything and make them pop. Artist most fun term ever. But so excited for where those came out. Those are progressing along. I have 2 more. One is going to be a portrait of a friend's daughter, and then the other one is a younger kid at work. What was it? Oh, the lead singer from Linkin Park. I don't know. I don't know them real well, but he likes Linkin Park quite a bit. He likes a lot of music, um, different stuff that we talk about, but he wanted that guy done. I was like, okay, I can do that. It's kind of fun to do portraits of people and sort of adapt them into my sort of lines and everything. So
Yeah.
it's all good practice. So I've been looking forward to that. As far as scripting goes, I don't have an ending yet. I'm still working on that. I wish I had that sort of. I had plenty of nights this week where I couldn't sleep very well, but none of them were very productive. I have an idea now. None of them were like that. But I'm really kind of going through, and I don't know if you can see this at all, but I got myself a yellow pad, a writing pad, because in the past, every time I get a project, I get a sketchbook like this, the soft one that I can fold up, roll in my pocket, and all my notes and everything go in that. And that's where I've sort of written my 2 very, very rough drafts of what I have so far is in this on unlined paper, just in my sketchbook, and other drawings and things like that will go in there. For this one, I'm really wanting to, write a script and really kind of delve into the story before I just jump into making the drawings, but really kind of be patient as far as that goes. So I have a very clear roadmap once I start, like for once. Every time, even as I get closer to having a tight roadmap, I still leave a lot of things up in the air because I just want to get started and get that ball rolling. But that has presented problems each time. So this time I got like a professional legal pad, a yellow one that all my kind of writing is going to go in there. And what I've done is I'm really kind of breaking up all of the beats that I have so far into that, just story beats. I work a lot off rhythms and music and liken composition to music a lot, composition of comics to composition of music. And so this is really kind of like I start off by writing the farm, and then I write the characters in the scene, and I write the story beats of what I want to see. I don't get into the minutia or anything, just the basic things that are the highlights. So if I'm kind of relaying this story quickly to my wife or my brother, which I'm planning on, I can kind of go, okay, this scene, this is going on, and then we can talk about it. And I can kind of bullet point them through the story to kind of show them where I'm at. Also for myself, but that's kind of the idea. So I kind of put the setting, who the characters are, and the story beats, and I've been going through kind of translating that stuff, and it's been giving me a lot of other ideas doing it this way, where I'm really just doing it in a sort of Roman numeral 1, A, 1, 2, 3, like that kind of classic notes-taking bullet points, just kind of telling the story that way. And then as I get ideas, I grab some Post-it notes, and I write the idea on that and put it where it goes on those pages. So I'm about through doing what I have once again with that, which is helping, and hoping that sort of story beat carries on to the next part. And once again, now it'll be to the point where I can kind of clearly talk about the story out loud to some other people that I respect and like having those conversations, because I can only sort of get so far by just sitting around and thinking in my own head and all of that sort of stuff. So that's where I'm kind of getting that ready. So I don't have the ending still, but still getting that momentum going and feeling in a good place about it, and keeping that excitement for the story, which I'm excited about. And then what was the last thing that I think I fell short on the other thing as well? Oh, I got my notes taken, and I think I'm ready to kind of video. It's not going to be like a long video. It's just going to be another open my sketchbook to the title, maybe play a little like goofy intro song, and then just talk about the comics that I'm highlighting. But I have the notes made for that. I had actually I borrowed Akira Volume 1 from somebody at a drawing thing I go to, and gave it back because I had been kind of taking a while to do this first video and didn't want to just keeping their thing. So I gave it back, and I was like, cool. But then I was like, well, I wanted that for the story. So I have my backup for that now, and I have kind of some notes of the bullet points of things I want to talk about with that. So I do think I'll be able to get that up this Wednesday, because like I said before, it's a thing centered around cool comics that I'm discovering and just sharing with people, and hopefully someone will be like, okay, that sounds like fun. So I want it to come out on Wednesdays because that's when new comics come out. So, and then talk about that as a way to hopefully have this highlight, your local comic shops as well, Reading Rainbow sort of thing. But so that's my progress. Fell a little short of what I wanted to accomplish, but with everything going on, yeah, I still feel pretty good about it. Wanting to push further and further, but you know how it goes. So in that one, I kind of talked about my progress and my quote unquote problems or just obstacles for the week and everything. But you kind of mentioned the back and the sleepless nights, but leading to some good stuff. Were there any other problems or issues that you were wanting to highlight or things that you ran into this week?
I feel like that was my biggest one. It happened Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember. I woke up, I stretched, and I think you've had the back problems. You got the old man syndrome just like I do, and you know what that is, where it's like before it happens, you kind of feel it, and you're like, I don't think I was supposed to do what I just did.
Yeah.
And then like you get home and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling sore, and then like you try to go to bed and you're like, yeah, I can't even lay down right now. It's been me and the heating pad have become best friends this whole week.
Ooh, which is fun when it's as hot out as I hear it's been in the woods.
Yeah, my wife was like, are we done sleeping in bed with the heating pad yet? Because it's hot.
That's like, man. Yeah, we've been noticing. I don't want to brag too much about the temperature that it was today, 66 degrees. Yeah, my buddy Kyle, who just moved to the Pacific Northwest and near Seattle, sent me a text today that the mover was bringing his stuff in and said, man, I didn't realize it was going to be so hot today. And Kyle sends me a picture of what the temperature currently was there, and it was 62 degrees. Like, oh man, after my wife had just told me like where you guys are, it's like near the hundreds.
It will be. We've had a little bit of a break in it. It's been more like 88 the past couple of days.
Not bad.
But it's supposed to be in the hundreds after Wednesday, like into the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we have a couple people in the chat, which I appreciate. What's up, Squatchy? And we have Abe Sapien, and Abe said, I asked him how he was doing, and he said, slow and steady, trying to survive the heat. So,
so he knows it's wherever he is, he also is in the pain.
It's going around. So like the last part of our art check is plans, and honestly, that's kind of what the show is about tonight. Shall we just kind of jump into that discussion?
Yeah, I feel like we.
Yeah. Once again, we're just kind of talking about. David and I discussed last week that we now feel like we're entering our sort of phase 2 with I'd Rather Be Drawing and our personal ventures and everything all together, which is what this was designed for. Building our foundations on Instagram and at our .com and doing some comics and getting some of the bad comics out of our system so we can start making better comics. So we laid that out last week if you want to check out that episode. And we urge you to link us to videos or comments that you're making about your 5-year plans, because I think it is important for artists have 1-year, 5-year plans. That's what we kind of are talking about tonight, is now going from a 5-year plan. What are the first steps in that? What's your next week plan? What's your 6-month plan? Which, David, you've been kind of talking about a little bit, but were there some specifics you wanted to highlight of what you're doing next?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, I kind of did already. I didn't wait to get into the spiel. I just went for it. But like, I just realized that I've been saying it vaguely during the making of book 1. I was like, yeah, it'd be cool. I'll make book 1 and we'll see if people are into it. And then I'll play with it. I'll do this and I'll do that. And I mean, I'm not trying to say I have like the world's biggest fan base here, but I definitely have enough to say this is worth it, and then to build on that and to kind of go from it. And so I decided like this will be a really cool thing. I'm going to take this series and see where it goes, and I'm going to make it regardless, because that's what I do. And even if I do number 2 and maybe it doesn't do the same as it does for this one or something like that, then I'll I put it online and I can do. There's just, we talk about this all the time, but it's like the way that the world is now, there's no reason to not make a thing, because there's so many ways to distribute that thing. Like, as long as I just do, it'll happen. And so I'm just ready to like put it to the grind and make this my thing. And then I'm not in any hurry either. Like, I mean, I want it to be good, and I want each time for it to get a little bit better, and it to be like a thing that I use for growth over the next 5 years. And because then I have a lot of short story ideas in my brain, but this has been one of the few long things that I've had in my brain. And so I do kind of see this is a really good opportunity to like lay all this out and use it as growth. And then once it's all done, everything I do afterwards, I will be just like that much better and faster at it, and I'll be able to like do other stuff easier. Starting with this thing might actually be good for me because it's going to give me a chance to like learn as I go with consistency and with characters that like I would keep drawing and stuff like that. So it's like every time I start a new one, I won't have to feel like I'm like going back to square one with it.
Yeah, especially since you started with a pretty solid square one, you know,
Yeah.
that you like. You're obviously going to get to a place where you're growing and doing better and this and that. And people see that in books, even like Akira. Artwork grow and things get more intense as it goes. But I just look back at like my first comic someone bought because they're interested in Matthew Enstrom, which I really appreciate. And not even like in a big self-deprecating, like, oh, it's crap. I don't even, you know, I'm still excited about it because it's a cool idea and it was my first comic and it was that. You just got to make something. But that would be something that when I revisit that story, not in a bad way, either use that first comic as like storyboards or a jumping off point, or just kind of redo that first one because it's pretty rough, you know. So if I was continuing that one, that's unfortunate about when you start your epics as your first things. You know, by the time you're done with the first one, it's so much better than the beginning, but you got your chops up and got them to a point where you're like, okay, I'm strong enough to make a solid thing and establish a style with the comic, and now you can kind of accentuate that world and add to and take away and do whatever. But I say you're in a good place for growing as an artist in this project, which it kind of sounds like is your plan, which I think is a great idea. It's a learn by doing situation.
Right. Oh, look at that. It's like our model you're talking.
Bada bing.
Yeah, that's definitely, and it's like you said, I mean, and it's not my first. I delved in for the 2 years before all this. I did some short story stuff, and I did some things that were like to practice comic as an art form and that kind of stuff, and they were fun. Some of them are on our website to read. Some of them I never even actually put anywhere. They're just like things I did for fun through classes that I took and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's kind of like I did my practice round of short little easy things. They were fun. I proved I could do them. I did this one. I proved I could do it. There's so much more to say. And now I'm getting good at consistency and drawing the same characters over and over again and all this kind of stuff. And it just feels like the perfect world to just like be the one that I do for that. And then I take that experience and I carry it forward and I do other comics maybe for other people or what, you know, we talked about that. Like I talked about how the idea of like just getting hired by someone else to just do some art and they get to forget about it actually sounds kind of awesome, because for anyone who's ever done it independently, you know how exhausting it is to have already spent all the time doing the pages, and now you have to spend all the time lettering the pages and formatting the pages and putting it into a PDF that is actually able to be shared and sent to a printer. And so, yeah. I feel like I'm the talker tonight, which is like weird because usually it's you, and then I kind of just jump in with my nuggets here and there. But
I think we both go on our little rants. No, it's fine, man. You had a good idea for the show. It just does get me thinking. Like we said before, it sounds like your game plan, like what I had thought before, is whatever you're doing, making the comics is the focal point, and whether you're taking client work to work on T-shirts or whatever, it all sort of stems from the love of making comics, which I think is necessary. From what I hear from successful comic artists, is no comic artist is doing this for the money, because it's not often very great money for the amount of work and art that you put in versus the takeaway. It doesn't make sense for a lot of people, but it can open a lot of doors to doing a lot of cool things where you can balance, you know, the creative side of what you want to accomplish, doing for yourself, and being able to use those skills and make money off of them, or even if you're just working a regular job to kind of, you know, make ends meet so you can be doing things for yourself. But I think it, you know, it's actually a pretty solid plan going forward. For me, like October, that's like my next biggest thing where I'm really sort of setting my sights with everything. So with that, with everything we talked about last week of where I'm wanting to push to, October is a very big landmark for me. And I think I was kind of building it up in my head a bit as such, going from my sort of shortest format thing since making comics in my very short tenure of a 4-page contribution for an anthology where it's my shortest comic, but my biggest deal as a sort of, I had just turned 36. I'm going to get published in this book. It looks great. It funded, really kind of important to me thing. So it's a weird thing to then go, okay, cool. That was a big important thing that I was a part of, but it was only a 4-page thing. And now it's time for me to do my own thing all about myself in the longest format thing I've done so far. So I have built it up as this big important thing, but honestly, for me, it is a big important thing. Not too important. I don't take myself that seriously. After all, it's a story about a pumpkin-headed monster. But yeah, so for me, it's really just grinding away on that. Getting the script done first, and really for my learning experience with this comic, which is always important to be learning as you're going, really kind of setting up, almost pretending as if I'm a writer sending my story to a different artist. I kind of want to have nearly that level of a finished story before it goes to art. Really kind of have that done and practice my writing skills, because I've developed my art up to a point. I still want to keep developing that, but honestly, I need to bring my writing up to that point at least. I don't want to be one of those artists where you're like, yeah, it looks cool, but this stuff does not make sense and it sounds hokey, and I don't want that to be a weak link in the story. So working on the script and my script writing chops, it's going slow right now, but I think it'll pay off. And I think it's important for me to do. So that's really kind of like first step for me in my, next phase with comic making, is getting scripting down. Along with that is part of my sort of phase one. I put off tabling for a couple different reasons that I mentioned, some good, some bad, but wanting to have like comics ready to go. I've now got that ready to go. So my next step, and I think I'm going to put as my what I want to, in a very direct with our 5-year plan, and we're talking about plans and kind of that portion of our art check even, is I want to have a list by next week when we talk of cons that I can drive to that are, within driving distance, or, camping out in a tent for one night distance, or something like that. I'm going to write that one down. But that, I think, is a very next important step for me, because I've been meeting online community. I do this here with you. I started drawing with that group on Monday nights, most Monday nights. But I really want to start like pushing that identity, going, yes, this is me, Scott O Green, the cartoonist. These are my books. I'm here at a convention that celebrates this culture that I love and want to be a part of, and start telling people, because it is the make it then tell everyone. So I've been making it. I'm continuing to do that and feel like I have a steady plan for that going forward, and even with some other stuff besides just the comic, but learning coloring and learning other things through means of commissions and stuff like that. But I think really important for me in the next step is getting out to conventions and really showing people that this is me, this is my identity, this is what I do. Not for, that, just that. I was like, not for a good or bad reason. I'm like, that's what I want for me and for other people to see me as a cartoonist and see that that's what I do as an artist, and this place that, I want to get to. So I think that's kind of the next steps for me in the near future is tabling and writing this script thoroughly for October. How about you? Like, as far as like, we kind of heard like your sweeping plans for this book and what it'll kind of get you in the next one, but as far, I mean, that's what I guess our plans are every week as we talk about this, but specifically as it relates to our 5-year plans, do you have any idea of something that you want to have for next week or, near future? Like very near future is a
Yeah,
better thing for us.
I think I should have my first page penciled by next week.
Oh, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, well, I'm just like trying to think of what I would work on next. I have a couple of random character sheet things and some stuff like that, but this is kind of what I was talking about. Like, I don't need them yet. I sat here and I like worked out the story and the bullet points, and I know, like, I even kind of I went back to my storyboard and some of my notes and like my how I script and stuff, and then I did like this is it's I almost get sketchier as I go. Like everything is clean and clean and clean until it's time to actually make it, and then I get really loose and sketchy, and that's when I actually am ready to make. But like, here's a this is the first 15 pages. This is like my literal format for what gets me finally making. Is I make these quick little things because I can adjust them and do that really quick. So the very first page is like this open shot of like a city that like it happens in, and that this first like little flashback happens in, and so like I don't need to do any character development or anything. I could pencil this thing and have page 1 done, and maybe the next week I'll ink it, and then I can literally say at least 1 page is inked and ready to roll, and I can go from there. So I'm just gonna say that as my one thing. Just I wrote this down actually beforehand. I forgot because I crossed out on my list. Pencil page 1 and format for the comic. So since I finished the cover, I need to go into my computer and make the actual new folder that says like here's the cover and how I name it. And then since I already did title pages and that kind of stuff of this first book, I want to just swap the names around and the whatever around and like kind of have the first like opening few pages of this book as well, kind of thing. Like the little copyright page and like the title page and like the first computer or TV screen that like tells a little story,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to format those to be ready so that when I have finished page 1, I can scan that in and put it where it needs to go in terms of file management on my computer. Yeah, page 1 and file management. That's my plan for next week.
Very cool.
Because I also picked up in the other half that commission that I was talking about, and I'll be working on that like in and out for the next couple weeks as well.
Cool. That kind of brings me to I'm on the fly with this subject tonight and everything, and with how we talked about our 5-year plan last week, we broke it up into 3 different sections, and it was IRBD, our website. I'd rather be drawing. Our own art, which what we're talking about here, for the most part, is our comics, and then what was it?
Do what?
Oh, it was comics specifically, art
specifically, and then I'd rather be drawing.
So we've just talked about comics, and then art, and so analog missions for you. You've got your game plan ready to go. Comics for me, for what I want. I'm going to kind of push a redo of what I wanted last week. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and just keep pushing towards that's going to get me to my ending. So I'm just going to push for that again this week. For my comics portion of that 5-year goal is to script my ending again. Script my ending off. Sorry, I'm just kind of breaking this down as we're going. And then we talked about our self art, like our pushing that forward. And you just talked about how you have commissions going, and that's kind of what that is, whether we're learning through that stuff or making money through that stuff or both. And then
I will always be doing my like prints and my color, where like that kind of stuff I do at cons on top of this stuff is like another thing that like pushes me too. Like always kind of doing a cool drawing of my new favorite book or video game, or whatever I'm playing, like that kind of thing is also a part of like just my flow and my process. But like it all centers around getting myself better at comics as well. And that's, I just took it back over. I'm sorry, but
no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Just because we kind of had this subject, but we're rolling with it. And I think we kind of started to say the same stuff. So I just started to kind of break it back down again. But it sounds like that is what you're talking about as well, as like that art for self. which is still what I'm talking about with, like, you know, whether you're doing commissions for other people or this or that. There's our comics that we're working on, which is like the root of it all. And then the next thing is that, you know, when you're a comic artist, you generally, in one way or another, you're not doing just comic work. Whether you're in your sketchbook, doing live model drawing or whatever, or you're doing commissions for other people, when you're doing it right, you're learning and honing your craft in all these different ways and design and all that. And for me, so do you have like a specific goal kind of associated with that work? You said a couple commissions you're hoping to be rolling on by next week.
Yeah, I mean, I get like one a month as a thing, and then like sometimes three, and sometimes like, I mean, I always seem to have at least one, and I like that flow. Like doing commissions is fun because it challenges me to like try a weird thing that I don't usually try in my normal stuff, and that's like why I like them. I've actually started saying no to some commissions too, and that's like been a personal goal of mine this year, is that like not every job that comes my way is a yes anymore. Like, I'm not making tons of money off this, but I'm not trying to make tons of money off this. I'm trying to make comics off of this. And so like sometimes I do get a commission that comes my way that I just realize like isn't good for me in terms of like the time it's going to take and what it will teach me. And that's been another thing this year, is like learning what to say yes and no to in terms of my time. Because I want it all to lead up into making my books like as productively and as fast as I can, and that comes from all the other stuff that comes from.
For sure. I'm in a little bit of a mode this year, I think, of a yes man quality, where not so much with like, hey, will you design this t-shirt for me and this and that. I haven't put myself out there a whole bunch for that sort of thing, so I don't really have to like say no to that or like safeguard myself from that too much.
Yeah.
But with stuff like Mr. Peter Palmiotti, who was in the chat there, he's got big plans for the Human Art Studio and what he's doing. Anybody that you see in our chat, I just got to say, the people I've seen, they're really good folks, and you should follow them when you see those people. But Palmiotti has some big ideas on stuff and has invited me along. I think it's going to be a great learning opportunity for me to kind of see behind the curtain of this stuff getting made and everything. So search Peter Palmiotti in retro comics. Search Squatchy Inc. He's been selling a whole bunch of awesome paintings, posting. In fact, I can do anything. Tattoos, makes comics, illustration, paints, all kinds of beautiful stuff. And Abe Sapien, another wonderful cartoonist you guys got to check out. All these folks have really cool stuff. But anyway, saying yes to stuff for me as far as things like that in the community, that's a little bit different from what you're talking about. But like I said, you've had a lot of those opportunities and everything, which was cool. But yeah, I just want to give a shout out and say hey to Peter, just kind of reminding me of that stuff.
Yeah, actually, so I mean, it is what I'm talking about in the vein of like you're saying yes to the stuff that I am saying yes to. Like when I did first start doing this and putting myself out there, I got a lot of the people contacting me that were like, do you do a logo? And I'm like, well, I can, and you're gonna pay me. So yeah, I'll do a logo, and you know, like all this other stuff that was like not even comics related. Like, hey, I heard you do art. Like, will you design my wedding invitations, or you know, something like that. And I'm just like, and when you're new at the making money at art, it's like just really cool when people are coming to you because they want you to do things. But then you realize sometimes like those kind of people aren't actually really coming to you for your art. They just know you're an artist and they want a thing. Like I like getting involved with your community, doing things with like Peter's a great example of it. Like everything he does is like exactly in the vein and in the world of the comics that we make, and it will bring in the kind of people who are into that. Like people who bought my commissions early on are not the kind of people who are supporting my work now.
Gotcha.
And I'm trying
so it is a bit different. I think in some ways I've avoided some of those landmines, which you used them greatly to learn stuff in your process, which was awesome. And I don't think you had much to deal with where you're like, now you're known as the guy who draws people's pets for them and everything. So I think you're able to avoid a lot of that as well, which I think I have. But yeah, I'm surrounding myself in a community of comic people online, not just like people that I know, you know what I mean? Like family and everything. So like, hopefully that stuff where people are like, hey, are you interested in that? Are you interested in that? It's, you know, with Matthew Enstrom, that video thing, you know, and doing an anthology with you guys. These are different things, saying yes to kind of get out into that. And like what we're saying, promote that 5-year plan. But so I was just breaking it down once again into those 3 spots. So we talked about our comic, our self art. The only other thing that was part of our 5-year plan from last week for us to talk about this week was for the website itself. David, you've been doing some stuff with the website and updating, like you said. So you've been doing that pretty solid. I don't know how you feel, but I think we might be due for, if you want to plan on us having for each other our excerpts for an email blast ready for next week, as a way of being like, checking all the boxes on our 5-year plan with 3 different parts or components. Unless you've already got like stuff, like I said, you've been kind of doing some good I'd rather be drawing stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely. I don't know why. I think it's because the thing we talked about, and it's the reason why I don't blog, or we don't really blog on the website anymore too, and we do it here. It's like we're visual, like maker people, and I don't spend a lot of time sitting down and writing out things, and then when I do, it feels like I've spent my drawing time writing, and then I get annoyed with myself, or that's what I spent my time doing and stuff. So like, but yeah, no, we do. We need to find a way to make the mailing list more part of my natural flow, so I can keep up with it consistently.
Yeah, and we do have a link below if you guys would like to join that email blast. We don't spam you with stuff, but we do keep you in the loop on where to find out what we're doing and how we're doing, and just kind of keeping it posted on our growth as artists and cartoonists and everything. So that link is down below. What do you say, David? Do you think next weekend or so we should have our parts for the email blast ready?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Cool. I know we've been needing to. So this will, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but this might be kind of a fun way to approach plans for the next little while, and kind of like a focused vision, perhaps for phase 2, breaking it down between what are you doing for your comic, what are you doing for your art, what are we doing for the website or whatnot. I want to, on top of that, because I've been talking about the t-shirt for so long and had a couple ideas here and there, and I do think it's good for writing and everything else, to be exercising different parts of that creativity. I want to try to come up with a couple thumbnails for t-shirts by next week, just to kind of get that ball rolling for myself. I also want to use that as a way for me to learn how to do that, how to make a thing that you put on a t-shirt in Photoshop and send to have printed. I've not done that sort of thing, so and so that's with just a couple simple thumbnails I want to have done. You've been doing some good internet stuff, and we're doing the I'd rather be motivated thing for the channel here, but yeah, I want to kind of up my ante a little bit, considering we've got that 5-year plan now. So I'm going to add that to my list for next week.
Go ahead and up your auntie.
Say what?
Up your auntie.
What?
I'm just no.
Oh. I got you.
Yeah. I was just making fun of.
Yeah, she's uppity. She's an uppity auntie.
Yes.
Man, with that second kid, your dad jokes are in high gear.
Oh, they really are, man. I'm on fire with my dad jokes lately.
That's awesome. So, are you down with that idea of since we've kind of stated our 5-year plan and that triple threat, kind of going with that for the plans portion for the next little while and seeing if that helps us focus? Keep
bringing up like what we're doing to push towards our goal, basically.
Yeah, just like in a more than a general. Yeah, this is what I want to do by next week. We can be like, what are you doing towards your goal for next week?
Yeah, I like that.
What are you accomplishing for this, that, and that? We kind of established it with these 3 things is where we're going to kind of get where we want to go, and everything we want to do sort of falls under those things. Our website as a dynamic duo, our art, which is just how we grow in ways that isn't for the comic, and then the ultimate goal for all this is our comic work. The passion that really drives us to be creative people. So I love it, man. It kind of unfolded as we went tonight, but that's what I was going for, and I'm kind of stoked about it. So I think your passion bled over to me.
Good. This is what I do.
That's what I do. And so humble. I love it.
I in all aspects of my life, except for when it comes to me being passionate about things, That's who I am. So
I love it, man. No, this is a good idea, and I'm glad you mentioned it. When you first mentioned it, I was like, man, that's less fun than what I was thinking of and harder. And now I have more homework. But I'm glad you brought it up because, once again, I grew up around a lot of people who I have a good idea, and you might as well just taken it and flush it down the toilet. So now when we have these good ideas, we can keep each other accountable and go, what about that thing? What are you doing for that? So
yeah, we have that talk all the time of the like, when someone has an idea and I'm like, okay, so let's do it. And then everyone's like, oh, we were just like talking. We don't like really want to do the thing. And you're like, what? That sounds so much fun.
here's my obligatory talking about Jake Parker and his buddies time. But Will Terry talked about that on 3 Point Perspective of being the kid who was like, like, man, we should go make a fort down by the creek. And he's like, all right, I'll go grab some lumber we got around back. And I got some hammers and tools and nails and stuff. I'll bring that along. And they're like, wait, what? No, we were just talking about wouldn't it be cool if. He's like, well, that's lame. Let's go do the thing.
Wouldn't it be cool if happened? So actually, wouldn't it be cool if it happened a lot when I was a kid? But then it did actually follow through a lot. And I think that's probably why I am the person I am today with like my creativeness and like following through and being able to see my visions and stuff. Let me tell you, okay, we did some weird stuff as kids.
Homeschoolers, I swear.
And one time, like, okay, so like, like walking through the woods and just exploring with things, right? This one time we were walking through the woods and exploring, and we'd always hit this big giant area of a creek that was like basically like a little bit of like a lake,
Mm-hmm.
And then we were like, what's on the other side of the lake? And so for one summer, we literally built a boat. Like we spent the whole summer like just walking around finding supplies that float and taping it to like a plywood and making a boat.
Awesome.
And then we sailed across it, and the road that was on the other side was like just the main road we always walk on. And we were like, man.
Those are good things to learn, though. Those are good lessons. I love that sort of stuff. Those are like my fondest memories of friends that I had that were more that way than, let's sit around and play video games or shoot hoops,
Right. Building boats.
I love it, man.
Sailing across, like basically like a sewage lake too. It was pretty gross.
Well, at some time in our lives, we all have to sail a sewage lake.
Yeah, this is all metaphors.
I think it was Winston Churchill or somebody that said that. So.
Right. I have always I've teased with other people who have kind of prodded me further into some of my other ideas, but I have like this idea. It's almost like a bit of a autobiography, but like of all the weird things I did as a kid, and calling it Lexington Court because that's the name of the street that I lived on.
Nice.
The adventures of little kids, but all that tells sort of like a life lesson and a metaphor of what the real thing we did was. So
I like it because as you work on this epic, you're going to get a lot of other ideas. So you're going to have to keep in the idea file.
Oh, I do. Oh, I do.
Oh, I do. I love it, man. Well, very cool. I think we've kind of went in blind, at least I did, and came out having a little bit of a vision. So I appreciate that, and thank you for the topic idea tonight and getting a little inking done here on my Miles Morales. So all around a good talk. I really appreciate that. I wanted to say thank you to the folks who joined in the chat. I encourage you to post in the comments below if you've made videos on your 5-year plans, or if you want to make one, let us know when you do. Here on YouTube. It's always nice to have ideas for shows. So love to see what you guys are doing. Thank you, Peter Palmiotti, Abe Sapien, and Squatchy Inc. I really appreciate you guys coming by in the live chat to check it out. Not sure this next weekend. We're kind of going for Sundays or Monday nights. We've been hitting that pretty consistently so far, and we're excited to kind of share what we're doing. So Sundays or Monday nights is when you'll see us here on I'd Rather Be Drawings YouTube channel and our show here called I'd Rather Be Motivated. David, when we're not here, unless you have any other closing remarks, I just kind of just went for it there. But you have anything else you wanted to say, or where we can find you? Let us hear you.
I have one more thing to say. It has to do with the chat, and then I'll sign it off. But I was laughing at Peter in the chat. Just made a comment that I kind of love too, which is the like when someone has their great idea, and it's not that they don't want to do it, it's that they want you to do it because they know that you get things done. And I do kind of love that because I do get known as that person, and then it's like, yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Do you know someone who knows Photoshop? And you're like, why? Yes, you're asking me. Obviously, you know I'm the person who know. Like,
like they're wanting you to like take the idea, do it, and then go to them and go, I've made this thing and it's ours. Isn't this great?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
But I do actually want to sign off by promoting somebody else and not my work, because I mean, you can check my stuff out in the work below. But what I spent today drawing is a man by the name of Inquisitor Kane from Magnus the Brave. We've had him on this show when he did his first book, which was his Magnus illustrated book, before he turned into a comic. This will be issue 2. It is going live on Kickstarter tomorrow. And so I am doing a bit of a fan art piece that I'll post next week to promote his Kickstarter, because I'm a huge supporter of everything that he does. But his name is Chris Rao, and Magnus the Brave is going on to Kickstarter tomorrow, probably before noon from what I'm hearing. And you'll see us posting about it. But it's an awesome, just fun, described by some pretty big people who have read the book as sort of a awesome ode to Samurai Jack and sort of the lone wanderer vibe. It's a pretty cool book, and I'm excited to support that. So that's my sign-offage for today. Over to you.
I love it. Yeah, I've heard somewhere between Samurai Jack and Headlopper lies Magnus the Brave, and I have the first one, and it's a great comic and from a great team, Ace and Chris Rao. You guys rock. So good luck with Volume 2. I know you're going to crush it. I'll have to find out more about this character here. I don't have the behind-the-scenes pass, and it looks like a fun one to draw up. Do you know how long this campaign's going to run?
From what I understand, he was going to keep the standard 30 days, but I don't, because we're not working right now. So in the summer, I only text him every once in a while whenever cool things happen.
Yeah, he can be a bit much, that guy. Anyway, if you do want to learn more about Magnus the Brave and the team behind it, I don't know exactly which one, but if you scroll back through our I'd Rather Be Motivated episodes, Chris Rao and Ace Knuckles, right? Ace Knuckles?
Yes.
Yeah. We had them on before on the show, Chris a couple of times, and it's always been a pleasure getting to talk with him about his projects. He is a fantastic cartoonist and comic artist, so excited for those guys. I'll just leave it at that as well. Chris Rao. Search that, R-A-U, Magnus the Brave. Apparently be going live on Kickstarter tomorrow, so you guys can check that out. I'm good.
All right. Let's sign off it. Let's do this thing. Peace out, guys.
Peace, love, and comics.